punk band Nora Marks are joining us today. We are here with Michael. Nora Marks just released their full-length record, Opt Out, and I'm super excited to see these guys grow and to chat with you today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of get things started, it's still kind of early in the day. I don't know why I'm considering it morning still, but I'm considering it morning. What was the first thing you listened to today?
Well, I guess I have two answers, and they're both a little embarrassing. So record is still pretty fresh. So I'm gonna be honest. That's kind of the first thing I listen to every day. I just put it on. So when I was doing the dishes this morning, I listened to it. So the first thing I listened to that wasn't our own music was I get weirdly obsessive about stuff sometimes. I give myself kind of little musical projects, and for whatever reason, toward the end of the summer, I was like, you know what, I'm going to listen to every Weezer album for, each album for a full week and just kind of do like a deep dive. And I'm at the very end of that. So today I also listened to Van Weezer, which is a pretty bad album. So that was kind of how my morning started. And then I listened to your podcast after that. So
Thank you. That's actually genius. Now that you say that, I'm going to want to do that with somebody and just do a deep dive.
It's really fun. And then like I joined a Weezer Discord. So now I have all these new Weezer opinions that I get to share with like-minded weirdos who love Weezer. So yeah, it's a trip. I don't know what to do next. I did this so much during the pandemic. I was listening to a lot of Thrice and Coheed and Cambria for some reason. Those were kind of the bands that I was turning to. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a way. Honestly, I feel like sometimes I just get so overwhelmed, especially with like Spotify and stuff. That's like I need something to like kind of focus on so that I'm not just kind of spinning the same things over and over again, or kind of keeps me like engaged in what I'm listening to a little more. I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, with musical discovery right now, between TikTok, Spotify, all of the other things that are just throwing ideas at you, I get overwhelmed. So now I'm like, oh no, maybe I could do that with Fall Out Boy, because I, haven't listened to like a lot of Fall Out Boy in a while. It's been just kind of like here and there. But now I'm like, oh, I could go to each album, spend a week. That's genius. I love that.
That's something I should do. I actually kind of just stopped listening to Fall Out Boy around Folie à Deux, so I don't think I've even heard anything since that.
Yeah.
Or they have like 3 more albums after that?
I think it's 3.
Yeah. Maybe I'll do a Fall Out Boy deep dive next. Maybe I'll do the whole Hella Mega tour lineup.
Oh my god, yeah. There you go. So kind of talking about you and the band, if you had to describe your band to somebody who's never heard of them, how would you describe?
Yeah, that's a fun question. It kind of depends on the person. Apparently my brother, when he was he's in school to be a barber, and he was working with somebody getting his haircut yesterday, and he used the phrase dark Weezer, actually, and that apparently really connected with that guy. And there's definitely elements of that in there. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Bridget and Haley, when they wrote up that press release for us, they put melodic rock, which kind of feels the most accurate, but also a little boring and dry and non-descriptive. So... yeah, how would I describe it? I would describe it as sort of eclectic pop punk, sort of eclectic pop punk. So if you like pop punk, you should like most of it, but there's also, we try to be a little bit creative or try to just throw stuff in there that you wouldn't expect as much as possible.
Definitely. And how did you personally get into music, and then how did that lead into forming the band?
Well, I was kind of always into music, but I was never like a music fan, if that makes sense. I really loved like Napster when I was in middle school, and I downloaded a bunch of stuff, but it was just sort of random. For some reason, the one song I always remember, the first thing I downloaded was the Wild Wild West movie song by Will Smith. And then, so it was like the summer between 8th grade and going into my freshman year of high school. We lived out in like rural, like middle of nowhere, Indiana. So we finally got satellite TV, and then I found Fuse TV, which kind of is not really the same as it was back then. But all of a sudden I was just inundated with like Alkaline Trio, All American Rejects, Rise Against, trying to think of other stuff from around that time. AFI was a big one. Taking Back Sunday was probably the biggest band I really found at that time for me. So that kind of opened my eyes to the idea of like a music scene, and like sort of like music being something that you can be like passionate about, and like that can be like an interest, as opposed to just something that's kind of around but not really like something that I was super concerned with. You know, it was just something
Yeah.
that I enjoyed and didn't really like seek out. And then, so in high school, my friend joined a band up, and they played in like around Crown Point, Indiana. And then Crown Point just had, at the time, a pretty vivid scene. You know, a lot of bands came through there, and I got to see like Envy on the Coast, Between the Buried and Me, Fear Before, all these like big scene bands, or at least what I
Hmm.
thought were big bands. And they would just come and play, you know, VFW halls and this weird gymnasium place. And so that's when I started getting kind of ingratiated into a scene. And then that's when I started wanting to like write music and play music. But um, I was kind of an insecure kid, and I was always really intimidated by people that played music. So I kind of took a long time to really learn how to play guitar, and I did a lot of start and stopping and like keyboard, piano too.
Hmm.
And then I did join a band briefly that I played like keyboard in my senior year of high school, but the kind of band leader was a little older, like in his early 20s, and so he sort of had just he was just trying to figure out what to do with his life, and ended up like joining the Navy and kind of just going off and doing like a different thing. And then so kind of through college, I didn't play music much. Then I ended up joining a band as the bass player that my friends had started, and we did that for about a year. But that again, they were kind of like older, and one was a teacher, so it was just hard for him we all also like they lived in Indiana and I lived here in the city, Chicago, so it was kind of hard to like get together too often. So then I just started writing my own songs and playing music with my brother because he was older at that point, and he started going to college here in the city, and we lived together, and he played drums. And so we had different projects, and then eventually we were kind of like not going anywhere with those, and so then we just decided very specifically, we were like, okay, let's just play like a kind of music we want, and let's like have some focus. And we both wanted to play basically like Alkaline Trio, the Lawrence Arms type pop punk music, and
Hmm.
wrote 4 or 5 songs and started recording them. And then Robbie joined, and band kind of changed over time sound wise. And then eventually Matt Galante joined on bass a couple years ago, and that's sort of solidified like what we were doing from there. Kind of a long-winded version of the story. So Fuse TV is the quick answer. wanting to be like Taking Back Sunday, basically.
That works. Yeah. I mean, so you grew up in Indiana, is that correct? Right. How
Yeah.
was the music scene differ from Chicago? I know Chicago is infamous for, Midwest emo. So how was the difference? Did that kind of pour over into Indiana, or was it kind of a little different?
Yeah, I mean, when I came to Chicago for shows, they were usually like big shows. So I was always going to like the Metro or the Riv,
Hmm.
or like the Aragon Ballroom. I think I know I didn't go, but I know I had a friend go to a show at the Beat Kitchen, which is a smaller venue. I mean, smaller in comparison to those. And But yeah, I wasn't really like in the Chicago scene up until I moved here. And even then, like when I moved here, I really didn't know anybody. So it really took a
Hmm.
couple of years before I started to kind of like meet people and figure out like what the bands were, like the kind of modern bands in the scene. In Indiana, it was more like there were basically about 3 bands from the region, which is essentially suburbs of Chicago, you know,
Hmm.
that kind of spill over into Indiana. And there were basically about 3 bands that kind of were the main bands, and they would sort of play all these shows with touring bands that would come through. So um, the music scene for me growing up was basically the Warped Tour, and then Warped Tour bands playing, you know, these like DIY shows, and then coming to Chicago for like bigger touring stuff, or Indianapolis too, depending on what the show was or where it was.
Yeah. And how did you guys come up with the name?
Mhm.
The
Uh,
infamous question.
well, yeah. So we were kind of trying to figure out a band name, and one thing that I was kind of always interested in was trying to find a name that just fit like a vibe that was like we wanted to kind of make like maybe not like fast or hard heavy music, but like definitely something with a little more edge and sort of like a little bit more of like a punk style to it. But looking for a name that would sort of like soften it a little bit. We didn't want it to be too aggressive of a name, and so my brother actually found this on doing like a Wikipedia deep dive of our
Hmm.
hometown, which is funny because like one of the songs on the album is basically the result of him doing another Wikipedia deep dive. And he just found notable people from our hometown, which is a very small hometown. And one was this writer named Eleanor Stackhouse Atkinson. Um, and so she was born there. She wrote some books, and then she ended up moving to Chicago and being sort of an investigative journalist for the Tribune. And she gets more fascinating the more I learn about her, the more I've kind of read up on her. And Nora Marks was her pen name, but she actually initially took the name because she was doing an investigative piece on like domestic help, and that was sort of the name that she came up with. That was like her fake name, and then she kind of just carried on using it from there. So yeah, we just thought like that story was kind of cool because it was like she's from where we're from and she moved to where we moved to, and she had this successful, interesting career. And we just felt like the name kind of fit the vibe because it's like Irish, and me and him are Irish. And then it's sort of like feminine, but then Marks has this sort of, more like aggressive Germanic sort of like edge to it. So it just kind of feels like it blends, just like, we just kind of want it to be flowing and like something that encapsulates all the sort of sonic things that we're trying to do, or like lyrical things we're trying to do, as opposed to a name that sometimes feels like limiting, to what, not that it always necessarily matters, but, sometimes a name feels like you kind of are stuck in a certain style or sound, or people have like preconceptions about it, maybe is a better way to put it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I think it's a great name. The first time I read it, it took me a second. I was like, okay, let me read this 3 times before I assume what it's how it's said in conjunction.
Well, before we got confident, we would like kind of mumble when people asked us. They were always like, "No remarks." So
Yeah.
we've been trying to find a way to incorporate that into like an album or an EP.
Oh yeah, that would be good. And speaking of albums, you guys just dropped your full-length record, Opt Out. Congratulations. What was the writing process like for this? Obviously it's been kind of a crazy year for everybody. Did it kind of start during COVID? Was this a pre-COVID project that has just extended throughout the last year and a half? How did that kind of come together?
A lot of it was pre-COVID. Yeah, sorry to cut you off a little bit there.
Good.
A lot of the songs were written or started before, the quarantine and the lockdown kind of started and happened. But unfinished. So some of them actually got played at our last show on Leap Day 2020, right before everything kind of shut down. And we were working toward an album then, but like, yeah, we had a lot planned in 2020, and doing like a full album was not really part of the plan. We were going to try and do the Midwest Punk Fest down in Bloomington Normal. And then we were hoping to actually do like our first tour down to Nashville, doing stops in like Indiana and maybe Kentucky along the way.
Yeah.
But obviously that derailed it. So once we did start playing together again after a few months, it was just kind of the thing we had to focus on. So we just really got down into, so when I say the songs were written, it's like the lyrics and the chords and the melodies for the most part were finished. And what we really did was we made them like band, because some of these songs I would also play like solo when I would do acoustic shows and stuff. So what we really did was like put everyone kind of got to come in and put their spin on each of these songs and really make them like Nora Marks songs and fit them together in a way that like made them cohesive and made them like an album. And that was the most fun. These were also the first batch of songs we ever wrote with Matt in the band as like a full member. So it was interesting and fun to see how his presence changed the way we approached writing music and what we were trying to do. Actually, it was fun. My brother did this fun thing where he gave us homework basically to each pick 2 albums that we wanted our album to sound like, and then we would all listen to the albums together and discuss them and kind of use them as reference points. So that was kind of a fun way to like. So we had the songs, and then we would do that, and then we would revisit the songs and kind of change them and do things with them. But yeah, honestly, that was kind of a nice benefit to the lockdown, was having all that extra time to just focus on writing and really experiment in a way where if we had been active, we probably would have, zoomed through a lot of that. And I don't think things would have been as carefully planned and considered as they were.
Yeah. And I've talked to a couple other bands who have had kind of the same thing. Is like they had pretty much like gotten to a point with the album where it was like you probably could have released it at that point, but having that extra time was really a good refining point. And I know, like I talked to Flight Club a few weeks ago, and they said they added an entire song that reflected the entire album, and it was just like kind of like the piece de resistance. So like a lot of people have had that same like kind of like, yeah, we're really grateful we had that extra time, because when you are busy, it is kind of just like a full speed ahead. It's like, okay, here's an album, here's a tour, here's whatever else you're going to plan within that release cycle. So that's awesome that you guys kind of had that same experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it'll also inform what we do moving forward. Because now I think we understand the benefits of giving it that hard stop and like really just focusing on writing as opposed to kind of like always writing as like a background thing we're doing on top of playing shows and promoting shows and practicing our sets, So yeah, I think we'll probably take these lessons and use them moving forward as well.
Yeah, and so correct me if I'm wrong, this was the first album you guys have done professionally in a studio, right? Or produced by somebody else?
Yeah, we worked in a studio before,
Mm-hmm.
but that was kind of just hiring an engineer by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have as much input in terms of like helping with like writing parts or adding parts or removing parts or changing vocals or even I mean because in this situation we like hired producers who actually kind of reached out to us first, so they wanted to work with us, and we trusted them, and it was so it was way more collaborative in that sense.
Yeah.
So it was definitely the first like produced thing that we've done where they kind of things. Basically, I would say the biggest thing that they did for us was situations where we would try to overcomplicate things. They would basically tell us to stop because it doesn't need to be so complicated to be catchy and interesting and good. You know what I mean? So they did a lot of fixing, rounding off those edges. I mean, as far as the writing process goes too, I mean, that was kind of the crucial last part, was having objective second and I guess first and second set of ears, to listen to what we're doing and tell us where we're on the right track and where we can maybe deviate and try something different. So, yeah.
And you guys celebrated with a release show with the God Awful Small Affairs and Broken Robots. How was that celebration to be able to celebrate with a bunch of people and also just kind of have that moment of like, it's done, we're here, it happened?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I've had a lot of, been very fortunate, especially the last few years, but it was still, I would say, one of the best nights of my life. Just so much fun to see just so many friends and people from different parts of my life, old roommates, old coworkers. All these people are friends. So when I say old coworkers, I mean, they're close friends, but who also
Yeah.
happen to be old coworkers, so that's where we met. People that we played in bands with before, and then new friends, people that we just met recently through this process, and people that the other bands brought out. And yeah, I mean, it was just really heartwarming and really, really fun. And yeah, validating, you know what I mean? It was a significant evening. And just so grateful for Broken Robots and the God Awful Small Affairs and all the work they did to help us promote it and to make it feel special too. I mean, both those bands, it's the best I've ever seen them play, so it felt like everyone was just like really excited and it's nice when people feel proud of you, you know what I mean? Or when you feel that people are proud of you, and that's kind of how it felt. So yeah, it's incredible. That would be my answer.
Incredible, period. So the epiphany I've had before was the leading single prior to the album release. What about the song led it to be that first single, and why? What was the choice? What was because I like the song a lot, and I'm just curious of the thinking behind of what putting that as the first single.
I think especially early on, that was everyone's collective favorite, kind of by a long shot. So that was like the one we all agreed on that we liked, and I think that's actually changed. I don't think anybody has the same favorite song anymore, but so that was a big part of it. It's fun to play. It's one. So one thing that we had to start realizing when we're like, oh, we're releasing like a single is like, okay, these are the songs that you have to play all the time for at least a couple of years. So it's fun to play. That was a big part of it, and it's short, which it kind of helps too. But it's also kind of the most. I think it's probably the most just straightforward kind of like pop punk song, and so I think we wanted to put our best sort of like punk foot forward, and kind of get people who are interested in that type of music, interested in what we're doing, before we kind of like start to deviate, right away the next song sort of starts to deviate, and then it kind of just goes more and more as the album goes on. So, just trying to like, just make it clear that, we are starting from this point, but we're going to try and do other stuff afterwards. So yeah, those are kind of the main decisions. Plus it's just catchy. It's just a fun song. It kind of, we also did. Oh, actually, another thing that helped was our producers suggested that we take the demos we made and we share them with people that we trusted and get their feedback. So I do think it was one of the more commonly cited like single options. So that helped a lot too.
Heck yeah. Do you ever get to the point when you're doing these like the feedback from people you trust, where you're just like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna listen to that one. Do you ever have any of those moments where you're just like, that's too much feedback that I really didn't want to hear, that now I'm like kind of defeated, or vice versa?
Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say too much feedback there, but there are definitely times when I'm surprised by it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
some of the choices people had for singles were ones where I was like, oh, really? That's not probably not what I would pick. You know, or doesn't feel indicative of kind of like the greater whole of the record. But I no because at least for me, I don't know what the other guys and the people they shared stuff with, but I picked the people I chose to show stuff to based on knowing that I've had good conversations with music and making music
Mm-hmm.
with them in the past. So um, to be honest, it was mostly just a an opportunity to like open the door to a fun conversation about my own music that so something I already love to talk about with somebody that I know can provide good insight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just being selective and careful about who I share that with helped. Yeah.
Feedback is like such an interesting thing to me because a kind of weird parallel. I started a stand-up comedy class, so obviously I want feedback on that from certain people, and like I've learned like who to get that feedback from. So I was just curious, like from your kind of perspective, things. It's obviously a different medium, but like how it works in that realm because obviously it's very different.
Yeah.
But kind of comparing those two and thinking about the ways of like I know at this point who to ask for feedback for and who not to. So just an
Yeah,
interesting.
that's very bold. Much bolder than playing music is doing stand-up
I don't know.
comedy.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Been kind of weird. It's only like a 4-week class, but we only get on stage once a week. And all of my people are going to an open mic tonight, and they're like, "Oh, come, we're all gonna." And I was like, "I don't know. It's different from me
Do it.
telling a." I, I'm just like, ah. But like I always say that like I have no musical ability, whatever. So like even being able to, get on stage with the guitar and like remember 3+ songs at a time is just so impressive to me. Um, but so tomorrow, I think if I'm looking at the days straight, you're playing the full album front to back at a DIY show.
Mhm.
If I'm
Yep.
not mistaken, is this the first time you're playing the entire thing in its entirety front to
Well, we were
back?
supposed to. There was sort of a scheduling conflict at our release show, so we actually didn't get to. We got kind of cut off, so we didn't get to finish it. So the fun thing is, the last two songs on the album are the only songs we've never played for an audience ever. So they were the ones that got cut off. So actually, tomorrow will be the first time that we ever actually play them in front of people. But yeah, basically, we're just gonna kind of make up for that, and so we have the chance to just kind of finally get that off our chest, and then kind of like move on to the next thing. Plus, it's like uh, tight half-hour sets, which is something that especially as we hope to get out of town a little bit and
Hmm.
hopefully even do like short tours. Having a tight 30, as you might know as a stand-up comedian, is like a kind of imperative. So yeah, that's kind of the next few weeks for us. We have a
Hmm.
couple shows lined up that we're excited about, and it's going to be really just learning how to be good and tight for 30 minutes. Because our release show we were supposed to play for a little over an hour, and we have fun doing like covers and doing old songs and like doing these big expansive kind of sets, but we really need to get good at just like being good. You know what I mean? Being consistent and good. So yeah, that's kind of what this show's about for us is just getting the album played finally, and getting to hang out with people that didn't get to come to the release show for whatever reason too. And looking forward to it. It's a great venue though. We saw Okay Cool play there actually. That's how I met the venue, the guy who runs the venue.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So in Chicago, I don't know what it's like right now for the music scene and how things are moving. But now that we're kind of in the clear, in the clear of it, how has that change been for you? And have you been able to see any other local bands that you already just mentioned? Okay, cool. But anything else that you've been excited to see as the world is semi quasi open up?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Some venues, like the Golden Dagger, where we played our release show, have been operational since like July.
Wow. Yeah.
under varying degrees of, restriction or, compliance measures. But uh, so it's been pretty vibrant, and it seems like it's not going to slow down at this point, which is nice. Um, but yeah, I mean, October 2nd was the first show we've played since last February. So in that sense, yeah, I'm excited to kind of get back to it. But we were pretty consistently trying to get to shows for a few months. The first one I went to was actually Broken Robots played their EP release show back in June, and it was like the day they played the show happened to be like the first day that things opened up,
Wow.
or like that restrictions were really like lifted. So that was fun, and that night especially felt really cathartic. And then we've been able to get out to quite a few things, and probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most right now is this Saturday. This great band from the city called Won't Stay Dead. They're doing their album release show, which just came out on Monday, at the Liars Club with Kreutzer Sonata and Dead Living and Sweetie. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then after that, we have a lot of shows, so I'm kind of more focused on those. And our bass player Matt is doing a cover show on Halloween, playing Finch songs along with a Fall Out Boy and a Paramore cover band. So I'd like to try to get there. I have kids, and my 3-year-old, he loves Halloween. So I will be trick-or-treating, but if the timing works out, I'd love to go see some Finch songs too.
That sounds like a blast. And by that, I mean the trick-or-treating. I don't know. I haven't been trick-or-treating. The cover show too, but so I found a quote. It might have been from the press release, or maybe it was somewhere else. All personal sentiment aside, that's what opt out is supposed to be represent: reveling in the things that make you great, learning to tolerate and even appreciate the things that don't, and extending that understanding and forgiveness to everyone else all the time. So what exactly do you guys mean by that? And looking at the record as a whole, kind of walk us through that quote.
Well, I can only speak for myself on this because I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth. But yeah, when I was writing that, I was just trying to grasp at like, I really love the title of the album, and I kind of love the general vibe and sentiment of it. And there is absolutely an element of it that's like trying to, I don't want to say create awareness. That sounds too lofty. Just trying to make sort of a point about social media and sort of modern discourse in the way that the trajectory that we seem to be going on that's sort of tense and fraught, and maybe the way that these technologies or these platforms feed into that, or kind of stoke it a little bit. But I don't want it to come across as like this totally like anti-technology concept, because I really think to me it's about like a lot of the songs are about being reflective of behaviors and sort of and trying to maybe find the causes of these behaviors, or trying to suss out the things that are sort of causing like a misalignment within your sort of chakras, for lack of a better term. Like something that's causing you to feel maybe out of sorts, or to not be yourself or the best version of yourself. And so in many senses, especially the last 18 months, that's been social media for a lot of people. But there's all kinds of things that kind of feed into that, and just trying to it's kind of a mantra, I guess, in some sense, that like there is always a level of control that you have over your own choices, your own actions, and your own behaviors, and that like you don't always have to be at the whims of the sort of like modern age, and all the information that's coming at you, and all the information that's coming at you with a very, and oftentimes like a very specific purpose, and that's trying to get you to do something, whether it's buy something or think something or react a certain way. It's very hard to resist. And so the title, actually, I had the idea because I had written myself a Post-it note when I was basically kind of just freaking out, last October, November, peak COVID, the election happening, just it was an insane time. So I had just written this little Post-it note, opt out, just to remind myself, like, I can put on a blocker and I don't have to look at Twitter. This is a choice you're making to doom scroll or whatever. And but then it just sort of became a mantra that like all of these things are choices, and so it's just about kind of remembering that like everyone is going through this to some degree right now, and you know, you don't have to create enemies or create confrontations. You can choose to try to acknowledge that other people are having these sort of same anxieties, and that they're also being affected by these same, you know, forces or these same sort of technologies or whatever, you know, whatever the thing is, the same information or disinformation or misinformation, you know, everyone is at the whims of these things, and just trying to remember that, like, just to pull back a little bit from that and to opt out, you know, of having to be somebody that's engaged in that sort of, I don't know, I said discourse already, just someone that's like engaged in that sort of way of interacting with the world, and that you can find a new way. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get at with that post and when I was talking about that. I mean, it's all maybe a little abstract, so hopefully that answer makes sense. But
100%, and I really appreciate, especially in the last year, it's just been, you know, I like the term of using like the term opt out, because, you know, my day job is in news, so, you know, there's often times where I just am like, nope, we're just gonna just put a blanker on, we're just not gonna, you know, pay attention today, and for the sake of my mental health.
Yep. Well, yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I'm online and I do like digital marketing, so
Yeah.
I can put away social media sometimes for 23 hours a day if I need to, but I can't always be off of it. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
between my day job and my band and this band, I guess, you know, I have to have some presence on there. So yeah, I mean, it's just about trying to control yourself, I guess, a little bit, the best you can at least.
Yeah. So, do you want to play a game called Quick Pick, where I make you quick pick a song, first song that comes to your head with the specific scenario I give you?
I do want to play. I am always bad at thinking of songs off the top of my head, so I'll do my best.
That's okay. I did not prepare any answers for myself this time, which
Okay.
normally I do prepare answers for, but I went full send. I did not prepare answers. So we're both playing it. We're both playing it.
I do have Spotify, so I can do a quick pick.
So the first one is you get a card that provides you with a lifetime supply of Chicago deep dish pizza for free. What song are you playing to celebrate? Oh, God.
That's a good one. Let's see. What is just a great classic Chicago song for me? Probably something by the Lawrence Arms, who sounds sort of the most Chicago to me. But what song?
The first song that comes to my head thinking of this situation is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Do not ask me why, but that is the song for me.
I'm going to say, let's say Great Lakes, Great Escapes by the Lawrence Arms. A great Chicago song. Yeah.
And number 2 is you woke up with the news that your single has hit number 1. All I can think about is Post Malone, Congratulations.
I was thinking of that song, I don't know if you know who it's by, Celebrate Good Times. You know that one? I don't even know the title.
The older one? Oh.
Yeah, that one.
Is that Earth, Wind & Fire? Or...
Perhaps. That sounds right. My dad loved Earth, Wind & Fire when I was growing up, so that's probably why it's so embedded.
I mean, everybody knows that song. It's one of those songs that it's just like, who's that by? And then number 3 is you find out that Phoebe Bridgers wants you to open for her tour. Now, depends if you're a big Phoebe fan, but
we're all big Phoebe fans in this band, yeah. Ooh, that's a good one.
Goodness.
Well, I mean, I'd be excited, but that's a very specific vibe that you have to kind of meet. Man, her music is just so sad. Well, not fully sad, but
I know. She has that song with Muna that's Silk Chiffon that's like really big on TikTok right now, so that's where my brain's going.
My first song that I thought of by her was Georgia, but that song is such a bummer. I don't know. That vibe is like The National to me, maybe. Like, what's that one song they have? That's like my favorite band, and I can't remember the name of it. I don't know, maybe like Mr. November, something, so it's a little thoughtful and reflective, but still energetic and excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
That works. That works. Well, thank you for playing. That I never pick things ahead of, or I always pick things ahead of time, so it was weird having to pick them on the spot. I was very under pressure. I have one final question for you. So musicians have the ability and the platforms to leave a mark on the world in so many ways, either larger or smaller. What do you want to make as yourself or as a band?
Yeah, great question. Again, I don't want to speak for everybody. One of my favorite things about our band is that we all have, similar but divergent sort of opinions and beliefs, and so it always makes for good conversation. So, without trying to summarize, if I could kind of summarize what I think we're about, it's and maybe it sounds a little trite, but I think it is significant if I can explain it. It's the benefits and the value and of having a close-knit sort of like group or community or family. We one of the things we love to do together outside of playing music is like grill and hang out and just kind of like invite friends over and spend sort of casual but significant time together. And we did that this last Saturday. We had we filmed like a session in my garage, and it was just it was all of us, and then all of our wives or girlfriends, and one of my kids, and a couple old friends, and then these new friends that we made that came and filmed us, and we just made all this Mediterranean food on the grill and had some drinks, and there was just a moment that it felt like where everyone had like a significant sort of realization that like we really have created a little family here, where the music is a big part of it, and it's sort of what it revolves around, but it's really grown into something more significant. And so it kind of doesn't matter, you know what I mean, if we always agree on the same things, or if we like even the same kinds of music, or, whatever, because what we have now is something that's been able, especially, for the last 2 years at this point, a lot of us have gone through different stuff, some very positive, some very negative, but there's always been this one kind of consistent thing that's kept us together and given us all purpose or something to strive toward, or to just keep us focused on the here and now, and not float away into a depression or whatever kind of situation. So yeah, I think our emphasis is just on the importance of having that kind of community structure, and having one that is open, and accepting of bringing new people in from time to time, and kind of having a revolving door, and of enjoying the differences that we have as much as the things that we have in common.
Oh, 100%. And well said. I love that. And I think that any musician can probably relate to creating that community of people around you that really, there is that one soul factor that's bringing you all together. But realistically, it is the camaraderie and the family style bond, which is amazing. Well, Nora Marks, Michael, thank you for coming, and thank you for being here.